Roald Dahl's Lamb to the Slaughter tells the story of Mary Maloney, a pregnant housewife who kills her husband Patrick after he announces he's leaving her. On the surface, the story seems like a simple tale of revenge, but Dahl's writing shows us that Mary has no identity of her own. Mary's obsessive attachment to Patrick leaves her with no sense of self, making Patrick's betrayal not just painful, but identity-destroying. Through her knowledge as a detective's wife and her complete emotional dependence, Dahl reveals that when someone's entire world collapses, they become capable of violence and manipulation that would have been unthinkable before. From the opening paragraphs, Dahl shows us that Mary's devotion goes beyond normal love. Mary loves to luxuriate in the presence of this man and wants to feel, almost as a sunbather feels the sun, that warm male glow that came out of him to her. This comparison is revealing. Sunbathers are passive, simply absorbing warmth from an external source. Mary doesn't generate her own happiness. She absorbs it from Patrick. The repetition Dahl implements makes her obsession even clearer. Dahl describes how she loved him for the way he sat loosely in a chair, for the way he came in a door, or moved slowly across the room. She even loves the funny shape of his mouth and the way he remained silent about his tiredness. The phrase, "she loved," appears over and over, attached to incredibly mundane details. This level of attention suggests Mary has nothing else in her life to focus on. Her entire existence revolves around observing and pleasing Patrick. This isn't devotion, it's obsession that has consumed her whole identity. Because Mary has built her entire sense of self around Patrick, his betrayal destroys who she is. When Patrick tells her he's leaving, her response is violent and immediate. She walks through the living room and sees him standing over by the window with his back to her. Then, without any pause, she swung the big frozen leg of lamb high in the air and brought it down as hard as she could on the back of his head. The phrase, "without any pause," is critical. There's no moment of decision. The violence is instant and instinctive, like a reflex. For someone who seems so devoted and gentle, this sudden brutality is shocking. But it makes sense when we understand that Patrick wasn't just her husband, he was her entire world. What's most disturbing is how quickly Mary transforms from shocked murderer to calculating survivor. The passage where the shift happens contains almost no imagery or emotion, which is striking compared to the romantic language at the beginning. Dahl writes that it was extraordinary now how clear her mind became all of a sudden, and that she began thinking very fast. As the wife of a detective, she knew quite well what the penalty would be, and her response is shockingly casual. That was fine. It made no difference to her. In fact, it would be a relief. These short, blunt sentences sounded robotic. The absence of descriptive language makes this passage feel cold and empty. The turning point occurs when Mary remembers her unborn child. Dahl shows her thought process through rapid questions. What were the laws about murderers with unborn children? Did they kill them both, mother and child? Or did they wait until the 10th month? Mary doesn't care about saving herself, but she cares desperately about protecting her baby. When she realizes she certainly wasn't prepared to take a chance, her survival mode activates completely. The same intensity she showed in her obsessive devotion to Patrick reappears. The repeated "she loved" from the beginning mirrors these repeated questions. Mary has always been someone who acts with single-minded focus. Before, that focus was on worshipping Patrick. Now, it's on protecting her child. The irony of Mary's plans comes from her identity as a detective's wife. Throughout their marriage, Mary absorbed knowledge about police work from Patrick. Now, she uses that knowledge against the very system he represented. She knows she needs an alibi, so she goes to the grocery store. She rehearses her lines, practicing,
"I'm just going to the corner shop, darling. Evening, Sam." "Evening, Sam. We've decided to eat in tonight."
multiple times until her voice sounds right. When the detectives arrive, Mary plays the role of a grieving widow perfectly because she knows exactly what they expect to see. She even convinces them to eat the leg of lamb, destroying the murder weapon while they search for it. One detective says he thinks the weapon is right here on the premises, and another responds, "Probably right under our very noses." They're eating the evidence while saying this. What makes Mary's transformation so unsettling is that the devoted housewife and the calculating murderer are the same person. They're both products of her obsessive nature and complete lack of independent identity. When Mary had Patrick, she channeled all her intensity into loving him. When Patrick took himself away, that same intensity turned to violence and then to survival. Dahl used the contrast between the warm, imagery-filled language at the beginning and the cold, legal language after the murder to show how thoroughly Patrick's betrayal has changed Mary. But underneath, her capacity for single-minded focus remained constant. She was always capable of extreme behavior. The circumstances just changed what form that behavior took. Dahl's story reveals the dark consequences of defining yourself entirely through another person. Mary wasn't a healthy partner to Patrick. She was completely dependent on him for her sense of self, and this made her vulnerable in a way that turned dangerous when that foundation collapsed. The story suggests that extreme dependence in relationships creates the potential for irrational actions when that dependence is threatened. Mary's obsessive devotion made her both capable of instinctive violence and calculated deception, using the very knowledge her dependence on Patrick provided. For someone who seemed so passive and devoted, Mary proved capable of shocking manipulation. But Dahl shows us that the seeds of that capability were there all along, hidden in her complete loss of independent identity.